In this video, we'll be mapping out Trump's insane surge over the last month. On September 14th, 2024, exactly 1 month ago, Trump was on track to lose this election. But today, he has taken a significant lead and is the clear favorite heading into November. And so on both of these maps, I filled in all of the solid and likely states, all the states that are unlikely to matter, and we're only going to focus on the key battleground states that will actually decide this election. We'll begin in Nevada, where Donald Trump has taken a 0.2% lead. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. Just 4 years ago, Joe Biden led in the polls by 5.2%. He ultimately won the state by just 2.4. And looking at where Trump and Harris were exactly 1 month ago on September 14th, Harris held a 1.2% lead. So just a month ago, Nevada was a tilt blue state, on track to vote in favor of Democrats for the 5th time in a row. But today, Trump has taken a very slight lead and is on track to become the first Republican to flip Nevada since 2004. Next up in Arizona, we have another state that Biden won very narrowly in the last election, this time by just 0.31%. But unfortunately for Harris, she is on track to lose the state. Donald Trump leads by 1 percentage point against the vice president. In fact, the most recent New York Times poll, which is one of the most left-leaning pollsters out there, they show Trump ahead by a whopping 5 points. 8 years ago, Trump was leading by just 0.7, and he defeated Hillary Clinton in the state by nearly 4%. So a 1% lead for Trump today really is very significant. And looking at the polling exactly 1 month ago, on September 14th, Trump led by a 1.3% margin. So he's been pretty consistently ahead throughout the entirety of the election cycle. Even after Kamala Harris entered the race, there was only one very short period of time where she led in Arizona, and that was during her peak at the Democratic convention. And so today, it's pretty clear to us that Trump is going to win Arizona back, a state he won in 2016, but lost narrowly to Biden. And so on both of our maps, Arizona is going to be tilt red in favor of the former president. Moving on to New Mexico, no surprises here. Kamala Harris is in the lead. Today, she's ahead by 8%, but just 1 month ago, she led by 10. So a double-digit margin dwindled down now just to 8. And New Mexico is a state that can get very competitive this cycle as Hispanic voters continue to move away from the Democratic Party. I expect New Mexico to be decided by a lean margin of 7 percentage points or less. But based solely on the polling, the state is going to be a likely blue on both of our maps, as Harris leads by just over the 7-point threshold. And then to finish off the western half of the continental U.S., down in the Lone Star state of Texas, today the former president is ahead by 5.7%, up from his 4.7% lead on September 14th. And so Trump is improving here in Texas, a state that he won by 5 points in 2020 and 9 points in 2016. And Trump might only lead by 5% today, but when all is said and done, I fully expect him to win the state by at least a double-digit margin of 10 percentage points or more. And so on both of our maps, Texas is going to be lean red as it falls between the 2 to 7 point thresholds. However, we do see an increase in support for the former president, which is always a good sign. Before we continue, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link in the description below. Moving on up to the Midwest, and this is where it gets really bad for Harris, because just 1 month ago, she was on track to sweep the entirety of the upper Rust Belt. And if she did that, she would have been able to win the election. But today, things have totally changed. Donald Trump is dominating up in this region, and if Kamala Harris can't win all 4 of the upper Midwestern states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she'll have no realistic pathways to 270 electoral votes. We'll begin in Minnesota, which is Governor Tim Walz's home state. Today, Kamala Harris leads by a 4.7% margin. This is down from her 6.5% margin exactly 1 month ago. In fact, the most recent Rasmussen Reports poll has the vice president leading by just 3 points, despite the fact that she is running with the state's literal governor, who was reelected by a double-digit margin back in 2022. Even Joe Biden won Minnesota by 7 points in 2020, and he didn't run with the state's literal governor as his running mate. And today, Kamala Harris leads by less than half of Biden's margin from from 4 years ago. And so on our September map, the state is going to be lean blue. In October, she is still leading by a lean margin, but we have definitely seen a drop off in support for the vice president. Next up, in Wisconsin, Kamala Harris holds a very narrow 0.3% lead, which she is extremely likely to lose in the next few days, especially as the Marquette poll here at the bottom, showing Harris +4, expires. And also, just compare where Harris is today to where Clinton and Biden were during their respective campaigns. 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton led by 6%. 4 years ago, Joe Biden led by 6.3%. And in 2016, Clinton didn't even win Wisconsin at all. And then in 2020, Biden won the state by just 0.6%. And so Donald Trump today is in a very good position against Kamala Harris in Wisconsin. He's behind by just 0.3%, when a month ago, he was behind by 1.2%. And so on both of our maps, Wisconsin is going to be tilt blue, but it's clear that Harris is going to lose her lead in the state fairly soon. Trump is going to take over. And then in Michigan, and this is probably one of the biggest flips we've seen so far, it was the most liberal of all 7 swing states in the 2020 election. It voted for Joe Biden by nearly 3 points. But today, Donald Trump leads in the polling. He leads by nearly 1%. He's up by 0.9. Compare this to Clinton in 2016, who led by a whopping 11.4 and still ended up losing the state. In 2020, Biden led by 7.2, won it by less than half of that margin. However, looking at where we were just 1 month ago, Kamala Harris on September 14th led by 0.7. So we've seen a clear shift in favor of Trump from Harris over the last month. And so Michigan is going to be tilt blue on our September map, but as we enter October, it's going to shift in favor of the former president and will be tilt red. Before we continue, I want to tell you guys about Polymarket, the world's largest prediction market, where you can track election results and instantly see who's leading. These odds react in real time to current events instead of days later like the polls. Market odds reflect the collective analysis, beliefs, and wisdom of thousands of traders reacting to world events. There's no bias or media spin, just pure data. Polymarket has also recently launched a mobile app where you can access their 2024 election forecast on the go. Make sure you check them out at polymarket.com and visit the App Store to download their new app. Moving on to Ohio, the Buckeye State voted for Donald Trump by an 8-point margin in both of the last 2 elections, and today he is ahead by 7.4. However, exactly 1 month ago, he was ahead by 9 points, so we have seen a very slight shift in favor of Harris, but that's likely just because of new polling data that's been skewed in favor of Democrats. We have new polls from the Washington Post, Marist College, and the New York Times. All 3 of these pollsters are heavily left-leaning. But also, just look at where Trump is today compared to where he was in the last 2 elections. In 2016, Clinton led by nearly 2 points. In 2020, Biden led by 0.6. And of course, in both cases, Trump won the state in the end by nearly a double-digit margin. And today, he is on track to win Ohio by at least 10 points or more when all is said and done next month. So Ohio is going to be likely red on both of our maps, but we have seen a very slight shift against the former president since September. And finally, in Pennsylvania, to finish off the Midwest, this is another state that Trump has managed to flip over the last month. Today, he leads by 0.1%. He is the clear favorite, especially if you compare his performance today to his performance in both 2016 and 2020. We see a clear shift in favor of Donald Trump. Now, exactly 1 month ago, Kamala Harris was still leading in the Keystone State. She was ahead by 0.1%. And so we've seen a very slight shift in favor of Donald Trump, but it is indicative of Donald Trump's increase in support over the last month all across the map. So Pennsylvania in September was tilt blue. Today, it is tilt red. And this is pretty disastrous for the Harris campaign, as the Keystone State is a state that she cannot lose under any circumstances. Moving up to New York, the performance the Democrats have put on here couldn't be any worse. Kamala Harris is on track to be the worst performing Democrat in the Empire State since 1988. She leads by 13 points today, down from 14 exactly 1 month ago. Mayor Eric Adams of New York City is currently being indicted, and Governor Kathy Hochul of the state of New York isn't any more popular. And that is why Democrats are performing so poorly, despite Joe Biden's 23-point win here just 4 years ago. And so on both of our maps, New York is going to be likely blue, but one thing is clear, it is not going to be solid for Kamala Harris early next month. In the Grant state of New Hampshire, Trump almost won it in 2016, but it has been shifting left ever since. Kamala Harris is likely to pull off a victory here. Today, she leads by 7.4. This is up from her 6% lead on September 14th. And so New Hampshire will go from being lean in favor of the vice president to today, where it's a likely blue state. Kamala Harris on track to win by just over 7 points based on the polling data, but ultimately she's probably going to win it by less than 5, despite what the polls are currently saying. And then up in Maine, Kamala Harris led by 13 points 1 month ago. Today, she's ahead by just 11.7, and it's clear that the polling here is heavily overestimating the vice president. This UNH poll showing her up by 17 is completely unrealistic. Joe Biden won Maine by 9 points, and this was a pretty strong performance. Harris is not even going to win the state by 9. Even these two other polls that have her ahead by 9 are going to be totally incorrect. Maine is going to be a lean blue state. However, according to purely just the polls, it has been a likely state in favor of the vice president over the last 2 months. And then to finish off the map in the Southeast, we're going to begin up top in Virginia, where Kamala Harris's lead has grown from 4.5% last month, now up to 6.4%. But this is mainly a result of two left-leaning pollsters releasing results that show Harris ahead by nearly or over a double-digit margin, which obviously is not going to happen. Harris is going to win the Commonwealth of Virginia by 5 percentage points or less. And while we do technically see a gain in the polls for Harris in the state, it's going to be lean blue on both of our maps, as Harris so far has been unable to break the 7-point threshold. In North Carolina, Trump has maintained his lead over the last month. Today, he's ahead by 0.5. In fact, out of all 10 of the 10 most recent surveys from the Tar Heel state, Kamala Harris leads in not a single one of them. Trump is absolutely dominating this state, a state he won in both of the last 2 elections, despite polling showing Democrats ahead by 3 points both times. And looking at where we were exactly 1 month ago on September 14th, Donald Trump led by 0.1%. His lead has expanded since then, and he is on track, most definitely, to win North Carolina for a 3rd time in a row. So it's going to be tilt red on both of our maps, but Trump has been able to hold on to his lead, even expanding it since September 14th. And then in Georgia, we have another big change here, 16 electoral votes. Exactly 1 month ago, Harris and Trump were actually tied in the state on September 14th, so it's just going to be a pure toss-up on our map. But today, Trump has taken the lead. He's ahead by 0.5 percentage points. In 2020, Joe Biden won Georgia by the narrowest margin of any state, 0.24%. Today, Trump is clearly on track to win it back. He's ahead by half a percentage point and leads in an overwhelming majority of the polls conducted. So Georgia is going to go from being a pure toss-up to being today a tilt red state, with the election just 20 days away. And finally, in Florida, we don't have too much of a shift. Trump led by 6 points last month. Today, he's ahead by 6.1, so barely a change from where we were on September 14th. But it's clear Trump is going to win the Sunshine State for a 3rd time in a row, despite it having gone to Obama as recently as 2012. According to the most recent New York Times poll, again, a very left-leaning pollster, Trump is ahead by a staggering 14 points. He's going to win Florida by at least 7, but possibly a double-digit margin too. So looking at the polling last month, Trump led in Florida by a lean margin. Today, he's ahead by just 0.1% more, so not too much of a change. Florida is going to remain in the lean red column, but ultimately, it's probably going to be likely for the GOP when all the votes are counted. And so over just the last month, with less than a month to go until the election, we've seen a dramatic shift in the electoral landscape. On September 14th, Kamala Harris led with 276 electoral votes. She was going to sweep the upper Rust Belt and was no doubt on track for a victory. Georgia was a pure toss-up. Donald Trump was only at 246 electoral votes, but things have changed significantly and very quickly. Today, Trump is the clear favorite. He's at 302 electoral votes, much more than where Harris was at 1 month ago, and he's on track to win every single swing state except for Wisconsin, which is likely to flip very soon as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below.